Hello, everybody. It's Wild Man Z with my 10th installment of my 2022 book review. I hope the few of you that are watching enjoy it. Maybe I'll get a few new people. Here's another one of James Fenimore Cooper's books. I had a run of these about 15 years ago. So this is the Pioneers, and I actually believe this is the one where they do the massacre of the passenger pigeons. I get them confused. The Pioneers and the Prairie, kind of similar books. I love his writing. I think he's a really cool American writer. Here's an author I really enjoy. Here is George Saunders, the 10th of December. This is a collection of short stories. He's sort of a surreal, sci fi ish literary writer. I really enjoyed him. I met him first in Best American Short Stories, around the 2010 to 2012 range, in there when they were still putting out stories I really enjoyed. And I read the self titled 10th of December story, and I immediately said, I need to find a collection by this guy. And I think this was just coming out, and I got it, and I really enjoyed it. That story in particular really turned me on. It starts out with a very surreal description of a boy who is, it really takes you a minute to understand what's going on. He goes out in the wilderness on his neighborhood, basically, on a winter day. They don't say it's the 10th of December. I'm guessing it's the 10th of December. Maybe I missed it. And he runs across an elderly man who's about to do himself in for some reason I won't go into. And we have like kind of the boy tries to save him, but in the process of trying to save him, try to save the elderly man, he basically jeopardizes himself. And it's a really cool story. It has a nice twist. Really, he has a very unique voice, and I really appreciate him. He's one of my favorite authors I've discovered in the last, I don't know, decade or so. Here's another copy of Ovid's Metamorphoses, except it's only books 1 through 8. It's the Loeb Classic Library. I got it online pretty cheap. I think from Amazon, a decade ago or so. I've gotten the complete Penguin now, and that's probably going to be the one I read. So if I ever make a donation to my local library, this will probably be one of the books I give back. I don't know much about different translators. This is translated by Frank Justice Miller, and I enjoyed it at the time. And I forget who did the Penguin. I don't know translators at this point. I don't read Latin or Greek, which is pretty bad considering I am a Greek and people in my family speak it. I took German in school. I studied chemistry, and at the time they always promoted chemists to take German because Germany was such a predominant country in early chemistry, particularly organic chemistry in the late 1800s, early 1900s, that you encounter a lot of publications in German. Not anymore, though. So, kind of took German, never used it. Kind of wish I took Spanish and Latin, but that's how life is. Never Let Me Go by, excuse me, by Ishiguro. They've made movies about this in the last few years. I have not seen it. This is sort of a drama sci-fi. It's very near future. Actually, I would say most of the things that they do in here could be done. We just don't do them. It involves use of children for medical purposes, and I'll just leave it at that. I could see how this story could be very depressing to a lot of people. May not be for you. If you're debating reading this, maybe watch the trailer for the movie and see if the mood of that gets you, because it's a pretty grim book. Not a lot of laughs in here. And the sci-fi is minimal in terms of if you're a sci-fi reader and you read that because you hear it's sci-fi, it may not be what you want. Here's a book I can't imagine an avid reader not enjoying. Master and Commander. The movie's called Master and Commander of the High Seas by Patrick O'Brien, and he wrote a slew of these. This is the first book I've ever read by him. I got the post cap sitting up there to read in the near future. This is really good. It's about the Napoleonic Wars. It's about a captain on a ship, Jack Aubrey. He's a new captain. He takes on a doctor. I think his name is something like Mortarin, and he's Irishman, I believe. And this is in a time when Ireland and Britain or England are having conflict. And him and the doctor start off. Him and the doctor and the captain start off having a little bit of inherent conflict, and then they become fast friends. Although their thinking is quite different. The captain is sort of, I would say, a Tory, very classically oriented man in terms of the aristocracy and the way the government should be ordered and so forth. God save the king and queen type of thing. He loves Admiral Nelson. The Morton is more of I guess you'd say a libertarian, and he wants definitely the autonomy or some sort of autonomy for Ireland. And so it's a really good story. It's got a lot of intrigue in it. The one thing that gets you is there's a lot of references to parts of the ship. You have to if you're a sailing person, it's probably no problem. But they have a little guide in the front that's really helpful, And it kind of makes a difference because a lot of times it'll be very specific thing, like he fell off a certain type of a mast, and you're kind of like, I'm always curious, like, was it over the boat, was it in front of the boat, or whatever? And he just uses these terms very seamlessly throughout the text. It's sort of written in the voice of the old days, and he doesn't certain things I actually had to look up when they talk about like the Lord Magistrate of the city or something. Lord Mayor, that was a term they used. The Lord Mayor's rules. I had to look up what that meant, which is not a big deal. I like to learn about things, and sometimes I don't like when they explain too much. It kind of destroys the feel of the book. Here's a book that is really cool as well. It's Neil Gaiman's American Gods. Here's Neil Gaiman on the back. I always like when they have a picture of the author right there for you to see. Kind of a cool guy. I love everything I've ever read by him, including Sandman. And he has one story that aggravated me. It was a short story I read on Tor.com. I think it was called something like I Cthulhu instead of like I Claudius, and it was he sort of made a dark parody about Cthulhu, Lovecraft's god, and I was like, who's this clown making fun of Cthulhu? And then like, because I wasn't really a Neil Gaiman reader, and then I started laughing. It was pretty funny. But a lot of you are probably familiar, but if not, the basic concept in a nutshell is the old gods from Europe, Africa, and so forth are in America now, and they've lost their mojo. People don't pray to them anymore. A couple of the sex goddesses and things like that, Easter, have a little bit of power, but everybody else is pretty for lame. They might be able to make a coin pop out of nowhere, something like that, but they can't do any real magic. And countering them, the bad guys, if you will, are the new gods who are all associated with technology like the stock market and TVs and things like that. And you can imagine they're all like teenagers and they're all assholes. And it's really cool. It's a fun story. Here's another good one. Secret History of the Mongols. I started reading this. I was writing something on the Mongols, a fictional work, and I put it down. I got on something else, but I'm going to get back to this. Had a lot of discussion of the cons and so forth, and just read about 30 pages of it and got derailed. I have to get back to it. It's by adapted by Paul Kahn, so I guess this is an ancient book. And again, I was using it primarily for reference a year or two ago. Here's another James Fenimore Cooper. This is Last of the Mohegans. If you're going to read one book by him, this is the one. I like him. I've read Mark Twain criticized him a lot for his style of writing, but I always thought that James Fenimore Cooper was cool. I enjoy his stories, and it gives me a nice depiction of the early frontier around the time of the French-Indian War and shortly thereafter. Here's a great book. I don't know if you would consider it sci-fi or not, but there are stories in here that are sci-fi. It's The Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell, which if you've seen the movie's pretty good, but the book is great. This book pulls off a trick that I think would be exceedingly hard for most writers to do. I write a little bit, and I could not come anywhere close to what this gentleman did. And that's to be able to write, and I think 5 or 6 totally different voices and totally different genres. He has dark comedy in here. He has a very hard-boiled noir type story. He has something that's sort of Melville-ish in terms of a story on the sea in the 1800s, and they're all written in like those authors you would associate with that. And then there's some sci-fi, and it's very different sci-fi. It's like near future sci-fi and very far future sci-fi where people speak patois, and he pulls it off seamlessly. And it's a really good book, and all the stories sort of tethered together through a link on like art or music, something like that, and also something to do with human oppression. The oppression sort of carries through. It sort of implies reincarnation as well, though none of it's heavily, it's not heavily explained. It's just sort of you go with the flow of the stories, and it's really beautifully done. So those are the books I want to show you for today. Hopefully the few people that watch enjoy it. Maybe some other people will check this out and like the books I'm going over, maybe give you some tips. I got a lot of books. We'll cover as many as I feel like covering. A lot of them are boxes, so they might be a little arduous to pull out, but who knows. I'll also start reviewing books. If I get a few people watching and are interested, I'll do that. So I'm out of here. Everybody have a good day, and Wild Man Z out.